because we have with the wedding in 3 weeks. I don't want to. So I'm not going to be sitting and eating with people after services for the next couple of weeks. I'm just going to. Good morning, Shabbat Shalom, to our intrepid folk coming into the sun-filled Bornstein Auditorium on the Shabbat of Acharei Mot. We're going to begin our service. We welcome you here and those who are watching on the Zoom. We thank Jerry and Kathy for helping to pass out some Sidurim. Joe and Val are enjoying the grandparenting universe with their first grandchild, and so we'll assume they'll be back in a week or so. But in the meantime, thank you too for being our greeters and ushers. We're going to begin, as we often do, on page 61, Modeh Ani. Modeh Ani lefanecha, melech chai v'kayam, shechezarta bi nishmati v'chemla, v'chemla rabba emunatecha, rabba emunatecha, ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael, ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. Join with me on page 63 as we thank God for the gift of our soul, Elohai Neshama. Elohai Neshama Shenatata B'Tehorahi. Elohai Neshama Shenatata B'Tehorahi. Elohai Neshama Shenatata B'Tehorahi. If you're able to rise, Birkot HaShachar is found. The morning blessings, page 65. Perhaps there's a blessing that speaks to you. Perhaps you need a little vigor for feeling a bit weary. Perhaps you need strength for the path ahead. Maybe there is one of these brachot that will really speak to you, and you can focus on that as we go through them. Page 65. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lasech vivina lahavchin ben yom uben laila.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shasani b'tzalmo.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shasani Yisrael.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shasani ben chorim.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, pokeach ivrim.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, malbish arumim.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, matir asurim.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, zokev kifufim.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, rokaretz al hamayim.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shasali kol tzorki.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamechin mitzadei gaver.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, ozei Yisrael bigvura. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, otei Yisrael b'tifara.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hanotein li ayef koach. Please be seated as we continue privately, page 65. Baruch atah Adonai melech haolam. Utneinu hayom b'chol yom l'cheinu l'chesed rachamim v'necha v'nei kol v'neinu tikvin leinu chasadim tovim. Baruch atah Adonai gomel chasadim tovim li'amo Yisrael.
ירס מפנק אנו להבותינו.
לעולם ידענו.
בן ברית ריבונו.
ריבון כל העמים הצדיקינו. מה נאמר לפניך? אבל אנחנו מכווני בריתך. אשרינו, מה טוב חלקנו.
חלקנו.
אשרינו, מה טוב חלקנו. אשרינו, מה טוב חלקנו. אשרינו, מה טוב חלקנו. ומה נעים גורלנו, מה יפה ירושתנו. אשרינו שאנחנו משכימים ומרהיבים ערב ובוקר ואומרים פעמיים בכל יום. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Page 67. Atahu Hachlo Nivra Ha'olam. Kadesh Shimcha Maktishe Shemecha. Kadesh Shimcha Yolamecha Vishuat Chatarim V'Tagbi HaKarnenu Baruch Atah Adonai
ברוך רושמו.
V'Kadesh Et Shimcha Barabi.
Amen.
Page 72, the Psalm for Shabbat. Mizmor, Mizmor, Shir. Shir le'yom ha-Shabbat. 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 Avladat l'Adonai Zemer Shemcha al-Yom. Tisimach tanen evalachem asay yadecha aranein magadu masachem. Kine evachian. Od yenuvon v'seva deshenim v'ra'ananim yihu lehagid ki ashar Adonai tzuri We'll turn now to page 81 as we continue Psalm 30, Mizmor Shir Chanukat Bayit David. Mizmor Shir Chanukat Bayit Le David, Armchak Dilatane Velosi Machta Oevai Li Zamru Laranai Chasida Bahodu Lezecher Kodshu Ani Amarti Beshabi Balamot Leolam Arneverson. He started Vanachrital Niva. Shema Adonai V'chaneni Adonai Ozerli. Shema Adonai V'chaneni Adonai Shema Adonai V'chaneni Adonai Ha'hafachta misprit macholi pitachta sakivet hazreini simcha Lema'an yizemecha chavad v'lo yidom Adonai Elohai le'olam odeka. Is anyone saying Kaddish in this room or on the Zoom? And in the absence of a minion in the room yet and not seeing people needing to say Kaddish, we're going to turn ahead now to page 83 as we continue with Baruch Shamar. If you're able to rise, please do so. Baruch she'amar v'haya ha'olam Baruch hu Baruch ha'oseh v'reshit Baruch ha'omer v'hoseh Baruch ozer u'mekayem Baruch mirachem al ha'aretz Baruch mirachem al habrihot Baruch mishalem sachar tov l'rehav Baruch ha'ila'ad v'kayam la'netzach Baruch Podehu Matzil.
Baruch Shemo. Baruch Adonai Elohim.
Yachid Chehol Melech Meshubach Umfradei Ad Shemo HaGadol Baruch Atah Adonai
Baruch Shemo.
Melech Mechulal Vatishbachor. I invite you to be seated. We'll turn to the Great Hallel, page 92. We'll do the first 8 lines and the last 4 lines, page 92. Hodu l'Adonai ki tov ki le'olam chasto. Hodu le'Elohe ha'Elohim ki le'olam chasto. Hodu l'Adonai ha'adonim ki le'olam chasto. Lioseh niflaot gedolot levado. Ki le'olam chasto, li'oseh hashamayim b'tbuna. Ki le'olam chasto, l'roka ha'aretz al hamayim. Ki le'olam chasto, li'oseh orim gedolim. Ki le'olam chasto et hashemesh lememshelet b'hayom. Ki le'olam chasto shebishvilenu zachar lanu. Ki le'olam chasto vayifrekenu mitzareinu. Ki le'olam chasto Notein alechem lecho basar. Ki le'olam chasto. Hodu le'el hashamayim. Ki le'olam chasto. Page 96. Ashrei Yehoshvei V'eteh. Tehillat Adonai Yedaber Pi Livarek Kol Basar Shem Kodsho Le'olam Vahed Va'anachnu Nevarech Taviad olam, hallelujah. Page 100, hallelujah, 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 El Bekodsho, hallelujah, hallelujah, Berki Uzo. Hallelujah, 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 big Vuratav. Hallelujah, hallelujah, Kerov, good love. Hallelujah, 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 b'tei kashofan. Hallelujah, hallelujah, v'nevel v'chinor. Hallelujah, 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 b'tov u'machol. Hallelujah, hallelujah, Elohim ve'ugav. Hallelujah, 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 v'tzir tzalei shama. Hallelujah, hallelujah, v'tzir tzalei truah. Kol haneshama tehallel, hallelujah, hallelujah. Kol haneshama tehallel, hallelujah. Kol haneshama tehallel,
hallelujah.
Baruch Amen v'amen. Baruch Adonai Elohim Elohei Yisrael aseh niflaot. Levado Baruch Shem Kvodo Li'olam v'yimalech vadot kol ha'aretz. Amen v'amen. If you're able to stand, we turn now to page 101 as we prepare for Shirat Hayam. Vayavarech Teben Elokah. Atahu Adonai Elohim asher b'chatar b'Avram v'hotzete me'or kastim v'samte shmo Avraham umatzat et levavo ne'aman lefanecha v'charoti matabet letzerchani v'titein otot u'moftim afaro b'chol avadah v'hayam b'kata lifnehem v'yavruch v'toch hayam v'yavasha V'yedrof mislachta b'msalot kamo even b'mayim azim. Page 102. V'haya Yisrael teyat ha'gedola asher asa Adonai b'Mitzrayim v'yir'u ha'am et Adonai v'yaminu v'Adonai u'v'Moshe avdo Ashira l'Adonai Ozi V'zimrat ya v'yili lishua Ozi, Ozi v'zimrat ya v'yili lishua Ozi v'zimrat ya v'yili lishua Ozi v'zimrat ya v'yili lishua Tahamot yochasum kafutamot balagam amay v'toh Michamocha b'lemarnei michamocha nedar b'kodesh norati lo tosefela Adonai yimloch le'olam v'hed Adonai yimloch le'olam v'hed Ki l'Adonai yimlocham asher v'goyim ve'alu mashim bar Tzion lishpot et har Esav v'yital l'Adonai hamlucha V'haya Adonai melcha kol ha'aretz V'yom hahu yeh Adonai echad U'shemo echad Please be seated. We'll conclude Pesukei de Zimra, page 104. Nishmat kol chai. All that lives, the breath of all that lives, will praise you, O God. Nishmat kol chai tivarech et shimcha Adonai Eloheinu Ruach habasah Adon kol hatalaot hamulam b'rav tikrachot Ilu finu malei shira kayam l'shoneinu Adonai Eloheinu Eloi avoteinu Al kein everything shablak tabanu. נהלל שבחך נפארך נברך את שם קודשך כאמור לדוד ברכי נפשי את אדוני וכל קרבי את שם קודשו האל בתעצומות עוזך הגדול בכבוד שמך הגיבור לנצח ונורא בנורותיך המלך היושב על כיסא רם ונישא. The Chazan will continue now, the third paragraph, page 105.
שוכן עד מרום וקדוש שמו וכתורנו צדיקים באדוני לישרים נאווה תהילה בפי ישרים תתהלל ובדברי צדיקים תתברך ובלשון חסידים תתרומם ובקרב קדושים תתקדש ומקלות רביבות עמך בית ישראל בנת פרשם וכן מכל דור ודור שכן חובת כל היצורים לפניך עד אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו להודות להלל לשבח לפאר לרמם להדר לברך ללקלס על כל דברי שירות ותשבחות דוד בן ישי עבדך משיחך.
I invite you to rise, page 106.
ישתבח שמך לעד מלכנו האל המלך הגדול בקדוש בשמיים ורץ כתקן אלוהינו ברכות והודאות מעתה ועד עולם ברוך אתה אדוני אל מלך גדול ותשבחות אל ההודאות אדון הנפלאות הבוחר בשירי זמרה מלך מלכי העולמים יתגדל ויתקדש השם רבה ביעלמה דברה קירותי וימלך מלכותי בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי כל בית ישראל בהגדה ובזמן קריב ויאמרו אמן. יהי שם רבה מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עולמיה יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל לשם דקודשה בריחו לילה מכל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירן ביעלמה ויאמרו אמן. את אדוני המבורך ברוך המבורך לעולם
Please be seated, page 107.
ברוך אתה אדוני מגדל מצרו ורי חושך עושה שלום ובורא את הכל הכל יודוך והכל ישבחוך והכל יאמרו קדוש אדוני אמיר לעז במלאך ברחמים וטובים חדש וכל יום תמיד מעשה בראשית. אין כי ערכך אדוני אלוהינו בעולם הזה ואין זולתך מלכנו לחיי העולם הבא אפס בלתך גולן לימות המשיח ואין דומה לך מושיענו לתחיית המתים.
Join Rob in El Adon, page 108.
אל אדון על כל המעשים ברוך ומבורך בפי כל נשמה גודלו וטובו מלא עולם דעת ותבונה סובים אותו המתגאה על חיות הקודש ונדר לכבוד על המרחבות זכות ומישור לפני כיסו חסד ברחמים כבודו טובים מאורות שברא אלוהינו יצרם בדעת בבינה ובשכל כוח וגבורה נתן בהם להיות מושלים בקרב תבל מלאים זיו ומפיקים הנוגה לזיבם בכל העולם שמחים בצאתם וששים בבואם, עושים בהם הרצון קונם. פייר בכבוד נותנים לשמו, סולה ורינה זכר מלכותו. קרא לשמש ויזרח אור, ראה והתקין צורת הלבנה. שבח נותנים לו וקוצב המרום, תפארת וגדולה, שרפים ויופנים וחיות הקודש.
Shkoach. Continuing page 109.
לאל אשר מכל המעשים. איזה שבח של טוב להודות אדוני לפיכך יפרח ביום שבת קודש שמחה. ויאמר אור שעשית פרוך הסלע,
תתברך שוננו מלכנו בגואלנו.
ברוי קדושים משתבח שמך מלכנו. כולם אוהבים, כולם ברורים, כולם גיבורים, וכולם עושים בהמה ורצון קונם, וכולם פותחים את פיהם בקדושה, ובתורה בשירה ובזמרה, ומברכים שבחים פארים עריצים הקדישים וממליכים את שם האל המלך הגדול הגיבור והנורא הקדוש הוא, וכולם מקבלים עליהם עול למלכות שמיים זה מזה, ונותנים רשות זה לזה להקדיש ליוצרם בנחת רוח, בשפה ברורה ונימה קדושה, כולם כחדונים ויאמרים ביראה, קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוא כל הארץ כבודו. והאופנים וחיות הקודש ברעש גדול מן המצרפים, לעומתם משבחים ויאמרים ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. ליד ברוך נמות ייתנו למלך אל חי וקיים, סמירות בעל מלחמות זורע צדקות מצביא. אור חדש על ציון תאיר, אור חדש על ציון תאיר, אור חדש על ציון תאיר, אור חדש על ציון תאיר. ונזכה כולנו מהרה לאורו, ונזכה כולנו מהרה לאורו. ברוך אתה אדוני יוצר המאורות.
We gather our seat as we turn to page 111.
אבל אהבתנו אדוני אלוהינו, חבל גדולה ותרחמת עלינו. אבינו מלכנו בעבור אבותינו, שבטחו בך אבינו מלכנו. והיירנו בתורתך, ודבק ליבנו במצוותיך, ויחד לבבינו לאהבה ויראה את שמך, ולא נבוש לעולם ועד, ולא נבוש לעולם ועד, כי בשם קודשך הגדול והנורא בטחנו, נגילה ונשמחה, נגילה ונשמחה בישועתך. ואבינו לשלום מארבע כנפות הארץ, ותוליכנו קוממיות בארצנו, כי אבוא אל ישועת אתה, ובנו בחרת מכל עם ולשון, וקרבתנו לשמך הגדול, סלע סלע באמת, להודות לך ולייחדך ולייחדך באהבה. ברוך אתה אדוני הבוחר בעמו ישראל באהבה. שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד. ברוך שם ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. והיה אם שמוע תשמוע מצוותי אשר נך מצוותיכם היום, ונתתי ושמתם דברי נפשכם וכתבתם למען יראו עמכם לבניכם על האדמה אשר נשבע אדוני לאבותיכם לתת להם כימי השמיים על הארץ. ויאמר אדוני אל משה לאמור, דבר אל בני ישראל ואמרת עליהם, ויעשו להם ציצית על כנפי בגדיהם לדורותם, ונתנו על ציצית הכנף פתיל תכלת. והיה לכם לציצית וריתם אותו, וזכרתם את כל מצוות אדוני ועשיתם אותם, ולא תטורו אחרי לבביכם ואחרי עיניכם אשר אתם זונים אחריכם, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם בארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אדוני אלוהיכם. אתם מביאים צפנה כל מקיים וטוב ויפה לדור ודור קיים ושמו קיים וחיסון האחרון ומלכותו ואמונתו לעד קיימת ודבריו חיים וקיימים נמדים על אבותינו ועלינו על בנינו על דורותינו על דורותינו. אמת שעתה הוא על אבותינו מלכנו מלך אבותינו גואלנו גואל אבותינו יוצרנו צור שועתנו פודים מצילנו אל שמך אין אלוהים זולתך. עזרת אבותינו אתה הוא מעולם מגן מושיע לבניהם. page 114. כתוב נרמש פילגים. תהילות אל ברכו מבורך, משה בני ישראל לקנו שירה, בשמחה רבה ואמרו כולם, מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, תורת תהילות עוד ספר שירה חדשה שיבחו גאולים תשימך לשפת הים יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ויאמרו אדוני מלוך לעולם ועד צור ישראל קומה בעזרת ישראל ובדקינו ממך יהודה וישראל גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו קדוש ישראל ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל אדוני שפתי תפתח ופי יגיד תהילתך ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו אלוהי אברהם אלוהי יצחק ואלוהי יעקב אלוהי שרה אלוהי רבקה אלוהי רחל ואלוהי לאה האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון גומל חסדים טובים, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות, ומביא גואל לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ופוקד ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני. מגן אברהם ופוקד שרה אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני מקיים מתים אתה רב ליושיע מוריד הטל מכלכל חיים בחסד מקיים מתים ברחמים רבים סומך נופלים ברופא חולים ומתיר אסורים ומקיים אמונתו בשני עפר מחמוך על גבורות ומדומה לך מלך ממית ומחיה ומצליח ישועה ונאמנת לך חיות מתים ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי המתים
נקדש את שמך בעולם כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום ככתוב על יד נביאך וכרזה אל זה ואמר
נקדש את שמך בעולם כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום ככתוב על יד נביאך וכרזה אל זה ואמר
קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות מלוא כל הארץ כבודו
קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות מלוא כל הארץ כבודו אז בכל רעש גדול אדיר וחזק משמיעים הקול אז בכל רעש גדול אדיר וחזק משמיעים הקול מתנסים לעומת השרפים מתנסים לעומת שרפים מתנסים לעומת השרפים לעומתם ברוך יאמרו
ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו
ברוך אדוני ממקומו ממקומך מלכנו תופיע ותמלוך עלינו, כי מחכים אנחנו לך. מתי תמלוך בציון, בקרוב בימינו, לעולם ועד תשכון. תתקדל ותתקדש בתוך ירושלים עירך, לדור ודור ולנצח נצחים. ועינינו תראנה מלכותך, כדבר האמור בשירי עוזך. דוד משיח צדקך.
ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהיך ציון לדור ודור, הללויה.
ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהיך ציון לדור ודור, הללויה. לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, נגיד גודל לך. לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, נגיד גודל לך. ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש, קדושתך נקדיש. ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד. לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, נגיד גודלך. לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, נגיד גודלך. כי אל מלך גדול וקדוש אתה, וקדוש וקדוש אתה. כי אל מלך גדול וקדוש אתה, וקדוש וקדוש אתה. ברוך אתה אדוני הקדוש.
We continue privately through page 170.
ישמח משה בת חלקו.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם בין יהודים ובני ישראל באסלאם כששת מבשר. שבת וינפל ישראל עמך נתתו ביעבה לזרע יעקב עמך. משביתי רצית בוך וקידשתו חמדת ימים אותו קראת זכר למעשה בראשית. מקדש השבת. המחזיר שכינתו לציון, אנחנו להר. יעקב ברוך אתה אדוני הטוב שמך ולכנה אלוהותו. שים שלום תפאכם וחסר רחמים וחי בשלום ידיך. Those of you who are still davening, please continue. Those of you who have concluded should turn with us to page 138 as we conclude the Shachrit service with Kaddish Shalem.
יתקדש ויתקדש שמי רבה. בלמד דברי קירותי והמניח מלכותי בחייכון ומכון נבחרת כל בית ישראל בגלה וזמן קריב ויאמרו אמן. ישמע רבה מבורך לעולם עולם המאיה יתברך. יתברך וישתבח ויתפואר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ותלה ותהלל לשמי דקודשה. פריחו לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה ותשבחתה ונחמתה תמירם בעלמה וברוך אמן. תתקבל תתקון נבוא ותקון דכל ישראל קודם ובהון דבישמי ומרו אמן. יהי שלום הרב משמי בחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ומרו אמן. עושה שלום יברמיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ומרו אמן.
We want to pause briefly and wish each and every one of you Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Good to see people. Welcome to those who are watching on the Zoom. I notice that most of you Zoomers are off camera. We'd love to see your pajamas. Just kidding. We'd probably not like to see your pajamas. So I wanted to just say that we are in this, I always find myself every year forgetting that there's a whole lot of energy that we get to into getting ready for Pesach and getting through Pesach and Pesach and Pesach and Pesach. And then we finally think Pesach is over and now we're going to relax. But that's not really the way the calendar works. So this past week we had a very moving Yom HaShoah service. Kehila, we both had a Yom HaShoah service downtown, a citywide observance, and we also had one here at in the Kehila, Old York Road Temple Beth Am. And next week we turn to the state of Israel, and we have Yom Hazikaron and Atzmaut, and it's just there's a lot of energy and attention that we have to this time of year, and we move from so many different moods from Yom HaShoah to remembering the horror of this time, the greatest catastrophe to the entire Jewish people, we might say, of the Shoah. And I wanted to just let you know, in terms of the juxtaposition of the calendar, it was a very, very, very controversial decision that the state of Israel made when they placed Yom HaShoah on the calendar when they did. And what was the controversy? What was the controversy about the date, the 27th of Nisan, as a date to say that is when we are going to observe Yom HaShoah v'Hagvura? Why was that controversial? I'll give you a hint. Because it takes place in the same month as Passover. And so traditionally, the entire month of Nisan, because it represents the birth of our people, is a day in which we are mostly to be celebrating. And so the idea that we would put a date to remember the destruction of the 6 million in Nisan was very, very controversial. Why was it that the government of Israel placed Yom HaShoah on the 27th of Nisan? Does anyone know? The Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. So 10 years after the establishment of the State of Israel, that is when Yom HaShoah was put on the calendar, and the State of Israel represented, in many ways, the response to 2,000 years of Jews not having a place to go to be free in their own land. And so the government of Israel said, the thing that we want to connect Yom HaShoah to is the resistance. The resistance. That is the uprising. That resistance was that which ultimately led to the establishment of the State of Israel. And we don't want it only to be about loss, even though, of course, it is about catastrophe and loss, but we also want it to be placed in proximity to the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, because we also want to connect it to resistance. And that is, the State of Israel is the reflection of the resistance. Now, we don't want to actually, and let's not get into theology here, because we don't want to ever get into saying that only would the State of Israel have come into being if there were 6 million who were murdered, And that was what was necessary, because that's a theology we do not want to touch. But we do want to acknowledge that the name that of this day that we remember this week is Yom HaShoah v'Hagevura, and the strength and the resistance. It's not just Yom HaShoah. It is the day of remembering the Shoah and the day of remembering the resistance. And that's why many religious people, Orthodox people, refuse to acknowledge Yom HaShoah because it was placed in the month of Nisan. And they said, we already have days on the calendar to remember disasters in Jewish history, like we have Tisha B'Av. We have a day to remember catastrophe. We should roll in the observance of the Shoah to existing dates on the Jewish calendar. We should not create a separate day. And certainly we should not create a separate day in Nisan, which is a time of our birth and rejoicing. But the government of Israel was very clear that in order to remember, we had to remember both the loss and the resistance that would ultimately create a Jewish state. And so as we now turn from Yom HaShoah, we turn now to Yom Hazikaron this upcoming week, and Yom HaAtzmaut, in which we remember and celebrate both those who gave their lives to defend the state and the fact that we will be celebrating this year the 74th anniversary of the founding of the modern-day state of Israel. Am Yisrael Chai. We continue now with the Torah service on page 139 of our Siddur.
En kamocha Elohim Adonai, ve'en kemasecha, malechutecha malechut kol olamim, umemeshatecha bechol dor v'ador. Adonai melech, Adonai malach, Adonai melech leolam va'ed, Adonai oz le'amo yitein, Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom, avarachamim heitiv aviratzoka et Tzion, tivenei komot Yerushalayim, tivenei komot Yerushalayim, kivecha levad batachnu, melech el ram v'nisa Adon olamim, vayehi b'nzoaron vayomer Moshe kuma Adonai v'yafusu oivecha v'yanusu misanecha mipanecha, ki mitzion teisei Torah, ki mitzion teisei Torah, udevar Adonai miYerushalayim, Baruch shenatan Torah, Torah, Baruch shenatan Torah, Torah, le'amo Yisrael b'kedushato.
Page 140, Ve'anarachetz.
Ve'anarachetz, ve'ishmei kadisha, kadisha yakira, anai martu shechan. Ve'anarachetz, ve'anarachetz, ve'ishmei kadisha, kadisha yakira, anai martu shechan. Yehi rahava odamach, דכל עמך ישראל, לטהרו לחיים ולשלום. Amen.
We'll continue responsibly with Chazan, page 141.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo.
Gadol Adonai iti, Unromema Shemo Yachad. Lecha Adonai
Hagedula, v'hagevura, v'hatiferet, v'hanetzach, v'hahod. Adonai, Amahamacha, v'yamit nahaseh.
All Rosh,
Ramemu, Adonai Eloheinu, v'hishtachavu, le'adam raglav kadoshu. Ramemu, Adonai Eloheinu, v'hishtachavu,
le'at kodsho, ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu.
Please be seated. So if you take a quick look at your Chumash on page 688, we are in Parshat Achrei Mot, and we are in the midst of the Holiness Code. It's all about how it is that we are going to create a series of practices and rituals that will keep us holy. And next parasha is Kedoshim. We have a lot to say about holiness, but if you look at the opening of chapter 18, there's a beautiful teaching from Sfat Emet this week about the opening words of this parasha, in which we are told, you will not do what the people of Egypt do. You'll not copy their practice. You'll not, when you get to Canaan, you're not going to copy their practices. And you're not going to follow their laws. Rather, verse 4, et mishpatai ta'asu v'et chukotai tishmeru lalechet bahem. Instead, you're going to do my rules and follow my laws. Ani Adonai Elohechem, because I am the Lord your God. Ushmartem et chukotai v'et mishpatai asher ya'aseotam ha'adam v'chai bahem. And here's the beautiful piece. You will do these laws, and you shall live by them in order that you shall be v'chai bahem, that you shall live through them. And so the question is, what does it mean that we will live by them? And most of our traditional rabbinic commentators, they take a look at that phrase v'chai bahem, and they mean, what we learn is that the observance of Jewish law from a legal perspective should never actually result in us having to forfeit our lives in order to keep the laws. And so there's a big rabbinic discussion about if someone says, I will kill you unless you violate this law of the Torah. What are you supposed to do? You're supposed to violate the law of the Torah, except for 3. Does anyone know what the 3 are? idolatry, murder, and sexual immorality. And the distinction, though, is that theoretically, there is some leniency on these three if you are asked, particularly idolatry, if you are asked to do it in private versus in public. Any of the sins that you would be asked to do in public, you should be willing to risk your life for, the rabbis say. Whereas if it was something that would only be happening in private, theoretically, you should chai bahem. You should stay alive. Because it's really the public blasphemy of God that ultimately you should be willing to sacrifice. Well, it's right. The question is, we're about to get this whole chapter 18. We'll tell you all of done. Look through all of chapter 18, and those are the things you're not supposed to do. Randy, Chapter 18 outlines it in some detail. Okay? But what the Hasidic masters do is they don't look at it as a legal definition of what laws can you trespass potentially in order to live. They look at this as saying, V'chai bahem. Why? The whole purpose of doing the mitzvot is that they bring us life and vitality. We can find ways, says the Sfat Emet, in which each and every part of our body can participate in being more alive through the doing of mitzvot. So that when we give of our hands, and we use our hands to, let's say, give tzedakah or offer someone in need food or comfort, or it's in fact that what chai bahem means is that we take every part of our being, and we devote it to the active service of both God and other people. And what it really means to live according to the mitzvot is not whether or not we should live or die by violating a particular practice. It's about how each mitzvah offers us a pathway to life, and that we can use each and every part of our bodies to affirm life through our devotion to the mitzvot. And so when we hear these words, which we will hear this morning, the question that we are reminded of is that how is it that we are using our Jewish rituals and practices to feel a sense of chiyut, of vitality, the Sfat Emet says, because the mitzvot are a pathway to life and to living and to vitality. May we find that path in our own observance of mitzvot. The Torah reading that the Chazan will be starting with begins the opening of chapter 17 on page 685 of your Chumash. We begin with our first Aliyah. V'yazor v'gein v'oshil l'chol simbo v'nomar Amen. Ya'amdu. Yitzchak ben Chaskel. Ve'et. Kolabat. Mordechai. Rishon. Baruch shenatan Torah liyamos b'kedushato. Ve'aten v'avikim Adonai Elohechem. Chaim kolchem hayom. Baruch Adonai Barach Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Barach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech olam. Asher b'charbonu mikol alamim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. וידבר אדוני אל משה לאמור, דבר אל אהרון ואל בניו ואל כל בני ישראל, ואמרת עליהם, זה הדבר אשר ציווה אדוני לאמור, איש איש מבית ישראל אשר ישחט שור או חסב או עז במחנה, או אשר ישחט מחוץ למחנה, ולפתח אוכל מועד לא הביאו, להקריב קורבן לאדוני לפני משכן אדוני. דם יחשב לאיש ההוא, דם שפך ונכרת האיש ההוא מקרב עמו, למען אשר יביאו בני ישראל את זבחיכם אשר הם זובחים על פני השדה, והביאום לאדוני אל פתח אוכל מועד אל הכהן, וזבחו זבחי שלמים לאדוני אותם, וזרק הכהן את הדם על מזבח אדוני פתח אוכל מועד, והקטיר החלב לריח ניחוח לאדוני, ולא יזבחו עוד את זבחיכם לאסירים אשר הם זונים אחריכם, חוקת עולם תהיו זאת להם לדורותם.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam notapet Eloheinu. Baruch atah Adonai notein haTorah.
Amen. We continue with the second Aliyah, verse 8, the top of page 687. Ya'amdu Avram ben Yamin ben Meir ve'elka v'et Ratza Rivka bat Yosef Miriam Paryam Sheni.
Thank you. Baruch et Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bochar banu mikol hamim v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai notein haTorah.
Amen. ועליהם תאמר איש איש מבית ישראל ומן הגר אשר יגור בתוכם, אשר יעלה עולה או זבח, ולפתח אוהל מועד לא יביאנו לעשות אותו לאדוני, ונכרת האיש ההוא מעמיו, ואיש איש מבית ישראל ומן הגר הגר בתוכם, אשר יאכל כל אדם, ונתתי פניי בנפש האוכלת את הדם, והכרת אותה מקרב עמה, כי נפש הבשר הדם היא, בדם היא, ואני ונתתי לכם על המזבח לכפר על נפשותיכם, כי הדם הוא בנפש יכפר. על כן אמרתי לבני ישראל, כל נפש מכם לא תאכל דם, והגר הגר בתוככם לא יאכל דם.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai notein haTorah.
Amen. The third Aliyah continues now, verse 13, page 687. Ya'amod Eliyahu Feivel ben Svi Hers V'Gittel Shlishi.
Baruch et Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Hanavarach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bochar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai notein haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. ואיש איש מבני ישראל ומן הגר הגר בתוכם, אשר יצוד צד חיה עוד עוף אשר יאכל, ושפך את דמו וכיסהו באפר, כי נפש כל בשר דמו ונפשו הוא. ואומר לבני ישראל דם כל בשר לא תאכלו, כי נפש כל בשר דמו היא, כל אוכליו יכרת. וכל הנפש אשר תאכל נבלה וטרפה באזרח ובגר, וכיבס בגדיו ורחץ במים וטמא עד הערב וטהר, ואם לא יכבס ובשרו לא ירחץ ונעשה עונו.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emes v'chayei olam v'tapet tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. The fourth Aliyah continues the opening of chapter 18, page 688. Ta'amod. Moshe Miriam Bat. Teshachava. Revi'it.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Hanavarach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Barach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. וידבר אדוני אל משה לאמור, דבר אל בני ישראל ואמרת עליהם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, כי מעשה ארץ מצרים אשר ישבתם בה לא תעשו, וכמעשה ארץ כנען אשר אני מביא אתכם שמה לא תעשו, ובחוקותיהם לא תלכו. את משפטי תעשו, ואת חוקותי תשמרו ללכת בהם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, ושמרתם את חוקותי ואת משפטי, אשר יעשה אותם האדם וחי בהם. אני אדוני.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. The fifth Aliyah continues now, verse 6, page 689.
יעמוד יעקב בן הרן הלוי.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Barach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Amen. Ish. El kol basar, el kol she'er b'saro, lo tikrevu legalot erva, ani Adonai. Ervat avicha, v'ervat imcha, lo tegale, imcha hi, lo tegale ervata. Ervat eshet avicha, lo tegale, ervat avicha hi. Ervat achotcha, bat avicha, o bat imecha, moledet bayit, o moledet chutz, moledet chutz, lo tegale ervatan. Ervat bat bintcha uvat bitcha lo kedale ervatan ki ervatecha hena. Ervat bat eshet avicha moledet avicha achotcha hi lo tegale ervata. Ervat achot avicha lo tegale she'er avicha hi. Ervat achot imcha lo tegale ki she'er imcha hi. Ervat achi avicha lo tegale El ishto lo tikrav dodatcha hi. Ervat kalatcha lo tegale, eshet bincha hi lo tegale ervataha. Ervat eshet achicha lo tegale, ervat achicha hi. ערבת אישה, וביתה לא תגלה את בת בנה, ואת בת ביתה לא תיקח לגלות ערבתה אשר ההנה זימה היא. ואישה אל אחותה לא תיקח לצרור לגלות ערבתה עליה בחייה, ואל אישה בנידת טומאתה לא תקרב לגלות ערבתה, ועל אשת עמיתך לא תיתן שכבתך לזרע לטמאה בה, ומזרעך לא תיתן לאוויר למולך, ולא תחלל את שם אדוני אלוהיך, אני אדוני.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam, natan b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. We're continuing with verse 22 on page 691. Ta'amod. You have to raise a bat. Moshe Chaim. V'shena Sarah. Shishit.
Baruch et Adonai Hambarach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bakar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. ואת זכר לא תשכב משכבי אישה, תועבה היא, ובכל בהמה לא תיתן שכבתך לטומאה, ואישה לא תעמוד לפני בהמה לריבה תבל הוא. אל תטמאו בכל אלה, כי בכל אלה תטמאו הגויים אשר אני משלח מפניכם. ותטמא הארץ ואפקוד עוונה עליך, ותקיא הארץ את יושביה.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam natan b'chotenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. We continue with the seventh Aliyah, verse 26, page 691. Ta'amod. Soralea bat. Yeshia ben Tzvi Tova. Shvit.
Baruch et Adonai Hambarach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Amen. ושמרתם אתם את חוקותי ואת משפטי, ולא תעשו מכל התועבות האלה האזרח והגר הגר בתוככם, כי את כל התועבות האל עשו אנשי הארץ אשר לפניכם, ותטמא הארץ ולא תקיא הארץ אתכם בטמאכם אותם, כאשר קאה את הגוי אשר לפניכם, כי כל אשר יעשה מכל התועבות האלה, ונכרתו הנפשות העושות מקרב עמם, ושמרתם את משרתי לבלתי לעשות מחוקות התועבות אשר נעשו לפניכם, ולא תטמאו בהם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nota b'tochenu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. We're going to pause briefly now and invite each of you to hold in your hearts and minds the names and faces of people in your life in need of healing. We're going to begin the Mishaberach L'Cholim and ask you to fill the silence after we pause with those names and faces of people in need of healing. Mishaberach Avotenu Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov Imotenu Sarah Rivka Rachel v'Leah Hu Yivarech v'Yirapeh et HaCholim et HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yimele Rachamim Aleim L'Hakzikam L'Rapotam V'Yishlach Lehem Mehira Refuah Shlema Min HaShamayim Refuat HaNefesh Refuat HaGuf B'toch Shar Cholei Yisrael Shabbat Lizok Hashta Bagala Vizman Kariv V'Nomar Amen. If you're able to rise, we'll continue with Chatzi Kaddish. Amen. Le'olam le'amei almaya yitbarach yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpoar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitale v'yitalal shemei dekudeshav berichu v'yeila min hakol birchata v'shirata tush v'chata v'nechemata damiran bi'alma v'yimeru amen. You may be seated. The Maftir Aliyah is found at the top of page 692, beginning verse 28. Ya'amod Shimon ben Mordechai Halevi Leah Maftir.
Baruch et Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Barach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Barach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. ולא תקיא הארץ אתכם בטמאיכם אותם כאשר קאה את הגוי אשר לפניכם כי כל אשר יעשה מכל התועבות האלה ונכרתו הנפשות הסוד מקרב עמם ושמרתם את משמרתי לבילתי הסוד מחוקות התועבות אשר נעשו לפניכם ולא תטמאו בהם אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. We'll invite you to rise as the Sefer Torah is lifted and dressed. Ya'amdu hamagbir v'hagolelet.
Come on,
There he comes. Here we go. V'zot haTorah, v'zot haTorah, asher sam Moshe lifnei
Yisrael, Al Thank God for Big Prince. Udvar Hashem Yerushalayim, Baruch Shenatan Torah li'amo Yisrael. Baruch Shenatan Torah li'amo Yisrael. B'kedusha Toki Mitzion. Tetzei Torah. Udvar Hashem Yerushalayim.
Why is it so complicated?
Tetzei Torah. Udvar Hashem Yerushalayim.
No, the other side always, everything faces him. You may be seated. Well, today is the last day of the month of Nisan, and because tomorrow and Monday are Rosh Chodesh, we have the special Haftarah from the first book of Samuel that Steve is going to be chanting for us. The rabbi selected this because it has the phrase Machar Chodesh in it, but it also was selected because as the moon is at its least visible, which is what it's at as we get to this time of the start of a new month, the relationship between David and Jonathan as a model of a relationship of friendship that grows and evolves is meant to be symbolic of the moon beginning to wax as it moves from this time of Rosh Chodesh into the time of a full moon during the middle of the month. You'll find the Haftarah that Steve will be chanting beginning page 1216 of the Chumash.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam asher bachar b'nviim tovim v'ratzav v'divreihem hane'amarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai habocher b'torah u'moshe avdo u'v'Yisrael amo u'v'nviei ha'emet v'tzedek. Vayomer lo Yonatan machar chodesh v'nivkadeta ki yipaked moshavecha v'shilachta terech me'od uvatal hamakom asher nistata sham b'yom hama'aseh vayashavta etzel ha'even ha'ezal V'ani shloshet chachitzim tzida oreh v'shalach li lematara v'hinei eshlach et hana'ar lech metza et hachitzim im amar omer lana'ar hinei hachitzim Mimecha v'hahena kachenu uvoa ki shalom lecha v'yein davar chai Adonai v'imko amar le'elam hinei hachitzim mimecha v'hala lech ki shalachacha Adonai V'hadavar asher dibarnu ani v'ata hinei Adonai beini uvenecha ad olam v'yisater David basadeh v'yehi hachodesh v'yeshev hamelech el halechem lechol v'yeshev Hamelech ad moshavo kefa'am b'fa'am el moshav hakir vayakam Yonatan vayeshev evnar mitzah Shaul vayifaked mekom David velo diber Shaul meuma b'yom hahu ki amar mikrahu Bilti tahor, hu kilo tahor, vayehi mimacharat hachodesh hasheni, vayipaked mekom David, vayomer Shaul et Yonatan beno, madua lova ben Yishai, gam tamul gam hayom al halachem. Vaya'an Yonatan et Shaul, nish'al David, memadi ad Beit Lachem, vayomer, shalcheni na, ki zevach, mishpacha lanu ba'ir, Vehu tziva li achi ve'ata imatzati chen beinecha imalta na ve'ar'et achai al kein lova el shulchan hamelech vayichar av Shaul b'Yonatan vayomer lo Ben Na'avat Hamardut, Halo Yadati, Kivoher Ata Leven Yishai, Levashtecha, Ulvashet Arvat Imecha, Ki Chol Hayamim, Asher Ben Yishai Chai Al Hadama, Lo tikon ata umalchutecha v'ata shalach v'kachoto elai kiven mavet hu vaya'an Yonatan el Shaul avihi vayomer elav lama yumat me'asa Vayatel Shaul et hachanit ala lahakoto vayeda Yonatan ki chalahi me'im aviv lachamit et David vayakam Yonatan me'im hashulchan bechari'af Velo aziv beyom hachodesh hasheni lechem ki netzav el David ki hichlimo aviv vayehi baboker vayetze Yonatan hasadeh lamoed David v'na'ar katonimo Vayomer lena'aro roots metzan na el hahitzim asher anochi moreh hana'aratz v'hu yara hachetzi laha aviro vayavo Hana'ar ad makom hachetzi asher yara Yonatan vayikra Yonatan acharei hana'ar vayomer halo hachetzi mimecha v'hala vayikra Yonatan acharei hana'ar mehera chusha al ta'amod vilakev Na'ar Yonatan et hachitzim vayavo al Adonav v'hana'ar lo yada meuma Ach Yonatan v'David yad'u et hadavar, vayitein Yonatan et kelav el hana'ar asher lo, vayomer lo lechavi ha'ir, v'hanar bo, v'David come me'etzel hanegeb, vayipol liapav artsa, vayishtachavu shalach pamim, vayikshu ish et reyehu, vayivko ish et reyehu, ad David higdil, vayomer Yonatan LeDavid lech leshalom, asher nishbanu shneinu, anachnu b'shem Adonai lemor, Adonai yiyeh beini uveinecha, uvein zari, uvein zarecha ad olam. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, tzur kol olamim, tzadik bechol hadorot, ha'el haneman, ha'omer v'yoseh, ha'medaber v'mkayim, shekol devarav, emet v'tzedek, neman atahu Adonai Eloheinu, v'nemanim devarecha, v'davarecha midvarecha, achor lo yeshuv rekam, Ki el melech ne'eman v'rachaman atah, baruch atah Adonai, o'el ne'eman b'chol devarav.
Amen.
Rachem al Zion ki beit chayenu, v'la'aluvat nefesh toshia b'mheira v'yameinu, baruch atah Adonai,
Baruch Shemo.
samech Zion b'vonecha. Samcheinu Adonai Eloheinu, v'Eliyahu hanavi avdecha, u'malchut Beit David mishichecha, b'mheira yavo v'yagel libenu, al kiso lo yeshev zar, v'lo yinchalu od acherim et kevodo, ki v'shem kodshecha nishbata lo, shelo yichben nero le'olam va'ed, baruch atah Adonai, Magen David. Al HaTorah, v'al ha'avodah, v'al hanvi'im, v'al Yom HaShabbat hazeh, shenatata lanu Adonai Eloheinu, likdusha v'limnucha, lichavod u'tifaret, al hakol Adonai Eloheinu, anachnu modim lach, umvarchim otach, Yitbarach Shimcha, Befi Kol Chai Tamid Le'olam Va'ed, Baruch Atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat.
Amen. Yasher koach to Steve on the Haftarah. Yasher koach. We want to invite Randy and Don to come and lead us both in the prayer for Don Sable, prayer for our country, and prayer for the state of Israel, beginning page 148 for the country, 149 for the state of Israel. If you're able to rise, we invite you to do so.
Our God and God of our ancestors, we ask your blessings for our country, for its government, for its leaders and advisors, and for all who exercise just and rightful authority. Teach them insights from your Torah, that they may administer all affairs of state fairly. Happiness and prosperity, justice and freedom may forever abide in our midst. Creator of all flesh, bless all inhabitants of our country with your spirit. May citizens of all races and creeds forge a common bond in true harmony, to banish hatred and bigotry, and to safeguard the ideals and free institutions that are the pride and glory of our country. May this land under your providence be an influence for good throughout the world, uniting all people in peace and freedom, helping them to fulfill the vision of your prophet. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they experience war anymore. And let us say, Amen.
Amen.
Avinu Shabbat Shamayim, Zor Yisrael v'Go'alo, Barech et Midinat Yisrael, Reshit Tzimichat Geulatenu, Hagen Aleha be'evrat chasdecha, ufros alecha sukat shlomecha, ushlach orcha v'yamitcha l'rashecha, sarecha v'yoetzecha, v'taknem be'etza tova milfanecha, chazek et yidei migine eretz kachenu, v'hanchilem Eloheinu Yeshua, v'ateret nitzachon ta'atrem, v'natata shalom ba'aretz, v'simchat olam liyoshvecha, v'nomar amen.
Amen.
We're going to continue now with the prayer for the new month. We invite you to remain standing. The Chazan continues, page 150.
יהי רצון מלפניך, אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו, שתחדש עלינו את החודש הזה לטובה ולברכה, ותיתן לנו חיים ארוכים, חיים של שלום, חיים של טובה, חיים של ברכה, חיים של פרנסה, חיים של חילוץ עצמות, חיים שיש בהם יראת שמיים ויראת החטא, חיים שאין בהם בושה וכלימה, חיים של עושר וכבוד, חיים שתהיה בנו אהבת תורה ויראת שמיים, חיים שימלאו משלות בלבנו לטובה. אמן. מי שעשה ניסים לאבותינו וגאל אותם מעבדות לחירות, הוא יגאל אותנו בקרוב, וקיבץ נדחנו מארבע כנפות הארץ. חברים כל ישראל ונאמר אמן. ראש חודש אייר יהיה ביום ראשון ויום שני הבא עלינו ועל כל ישראל לטובה.
The new month of Iyar will start tomorrow and will continue through Monday of the coming week. May it hold blessing for us, the people of Israel, and all of this world.
יחדשהו הקדוש ברוך הוא עלינו ועל כל עמו בית ישראל, לחיים ולשלום, לששון ולשמחה, לישועה ולנחמה, ונאמר amen.
We'll remain standing as we return the Sefer Torah and continue.
154.
We'll continue on page 153.
יהללו את שם אדוני כי נשגב שמו לבדו, הודו על ארץ ושמיים, וירם קרן לעמו, תהילה לכל חסידיו, לבני ישראל עם קרובו. הללויה, 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 עץ חיים היא, למה חזיקימה, ותומכיה מאושר. דרכך דרכי נועם, וכל נתיבותיה שלום. השיבנו אדוני אליך ונשובה, חדש חדש ימינו, חדש ימינו כקדם.
Please be seated. Once again, Shabbat Shalom to all, those in the room, those on the Zoom. So today I want to tell a story about a man who refused to take no for an answer, someone who challenged authority, rejected the status quo and the conventional wisdom of his day, and set in motion a chain of events that have had a profound impact on the Jewish people in the world. Someone who devoted his time, his energy, his resources, and you might say his reputation and his life, his fortune and his honor to a cause that has benefited millions, including each and every one of us in this room. I'm speaking about Theodor Herzl. Herzl was born in Budapest in 1860 into a secular Jewish family, and his family moved to Vienna when he was a teenager. Now, when you hear that Herzl's family moved from Budapest to Vienna, it sounds ordinary and commonplace, but it wasn't. At the time of Herzl's birth in 1860s, Jews were not permitted to live freely in Vienna. It was only when he was 7 years old that a new constitution was written that allowed Jews to practice their faith and live anywhere in Austria. And so after 1860, lots of Jewish families like Herzl's moved to Vienna. Now, did the locals like that? No, they didn't. The Viennese resented Jewish immigration, and that feeling was part of a generalized disdain and distaste for Jews throughout Europe that became known as anti-Semitism, a scientific-sounding word that was coined in the 19th century and popularized by those who discriminated against Jews to help them feel that what they were doing was right and proper. Jews were resented everywhere in Europe. Everyone understood that they didn't belong in the ethnic nation-states of Europe. Yet no one seemed to know what to do about the Jews, whether religious or secular. And Jews, whether religious or secular, were conscious that they held an outside status in most of the nations of Europe. For these countries, the issue became known as the Jewish question or the Jewish problem. Now, you all know that Herzl was a sophisticated and assimilated man. He was educated, well-read, well-spoken, as much at home in Europe as any person and certainly as any Jew could be. He went to law school and became, as you know, a journalist. But he wrote plays and short essays for one of the best-known newspapers of the day, which was called the Neue Free Press. He had little interest in Judaism, and he had little interest in anything Jewish, that is, until he experienced anti-Semitism firsthand. At some point when Herzl was in his 20s, he was sitting in a carriage when two hooligans stuck their head in and called him a dirty Jew. It shocked and angered him. But then he calmed down. It wasn't, he thought to himself, that he was Jewish. It's that he looked like a Jew. That is, he resembled the stereotypical Jew because of his nose and the beard that he had. They mistook me, he thought, for one of those kinds of Jews. And so he didn't take it personally at that time. But soon he realized there was more to it than that. His employer sent him to Paris to cover the Dreyfus Trial, as you know. Alfred Dreyfus was another assimilated and secular Jew and a distinguished French military officer who was accused of treason by 7 of his fellow officers. Everyone assumed that he was guilty. After all, how could 7 fellow officers be wrong? Every morning as Herzl made his way to the trial, he encountered demonstrators shouting, "Down with the Jews," or "Death to the Jews." As he later related, one man who happened to be Jewish commits treason and they want to kill all the Jews? That's when he realized that Dreyfus was on trial not because he was a traitor, but because he was a Jew. Herzl witnessed Dreyfus's public humiliation when he was convicted. Dreyfus's insignia was ripped off of his uniform, his sword was broken, and he was forced to walk off to prison to the sounds of the murderous shouts of his fellow officers, the mob, and even the other journalists. The experience of covering the Dreyfus Trial helped convince Herzl that anti-Semitism wasn't about other people. It was about him and his people. And suddenly, therefore, it became personal. And so he set out to solve the Jewish problem. He thought big. We need a state, he said, a modern state. The handful of small settlements that existed in what is now Israel would not do it. And so he wrote up his dream in a small pamphlet entitled The Jewish State. It had an immediate and electrifying impact for the most part. You know what that impact was? It was negative. People mocked and scorned Herzl. I'm all in favor of a Jewish state, said one of his friends, provided that they appoint me ambassador to Vienna. When Herzl would show up at the Vienna Opera, people would say, His Majesty has arrived. But the opposition didn't stop him. Instead, it energized him. Because Herzl had incredible vision and he had incredible chutzpah. On his own, he set up an appointment with one of the richest Jews in Europe, Baron de Hirsch in Paris. He went over to the Baron's house and essentially said to him, I want to create a Jewish state, and I want you to help pay for it. Apparently, Herzl's persuasive powers were not up to the challenge, and the Baron turned him down. And a lot of other people he went to for money turned him down. But it didn't stop him. Again, on his own, he set off for Constantinople to meet with the Sultan of Turkey, to plead with him to let the Jews settle in Palestine. Had the Sultan invited him to come? No. But he went anyway, hoping for an audience. You could say that the trip was pointless, for the Sultan didn't agree to see him, and Herzl returned empty-handed. But here's what happened along the way. When Herzl's train pulled into the station in Sofia, Bulgaria, he saw that a huge crowd had gathered on the platform, and they were shouting, Long live Herzl. And they were shouting, Lashana Haba'ah B'Yerushalayim. And he realized that the Bulgarian Jews had come to cheer him on. And he found that that grassroots support was far and wide. And so a few months later, he traveled to London to seek funding from wealthy Jews. But they greeted him coldly, and again, his plea was rejected. But a large number of Eastern European Jewish immigrants gathered in the streets of London to embrace him and his cause. And so Herzl realized that he needed to organize this support if he was going to make any headway. And so he put out an invitation to anyone who wished to support him and his idea of establishing a Jewish state to join him in August of 1897 at a conference in Munich, Germany. But you know what happened? The rabbis of Munich were united in opposing Herzl, and they put a stop to that, essentially with a not in my backyard argument. And so Herzl was forced to move the conference out of Germany altogether, and he held it in the city we all know, which was Basel in Switzerland. And so the first Zionist Congress was held in Basel from August 29 to August 31, 1897. The first time that Jews had gathered as a political body to promote their independence and self-determination in almost 2,000 years. Now, Herzl was not only visionary, but he was savvy, and he cared about optics. Remember the meeting that I told you about that he had with Baron de Hirsch? At the time, Herzl was staying 3 blocks away from Baron de Hirsch in Paris. But he rented a carriage so that he would arrive at Hirsch's mansion in style. And many of you may have seen photographs of the first Zionist Congress. And if you have, you note that the participants in that conference were wearing top hats and tails. That was Herzl's idea. We have to look the part, he said to the delegates. We have to hold our heads high with dignity and respect. We have to realize that we are representing the entire Jewish people and its future. And so all the delegates showed up in their top hats and their tails. And as you know, that conference was a success. Herzl managed to bring together more than 200 Jews from all over the world, some traditionally observant, others atheists, some from Russia and Poland, others from France, Germany, England, and even the United States. He united them by focusing them on their common concern, Jewish vulnerability, and their common desire to solve the Jewish problem and answer the Jewish question. As you may know, when that conference ended, Herzl wrote this in his diary: "Today I created the Jewish state." If I were to say this aloud today, I would be met by universal laughter. In 5 years perhaps, but certainly in 50, everyone will agree. In fact, exactly 50 years and 3 months later, the United Nations voted to establish a Jewish state in the land of Israel. So why did I bring this to you today? 3 reasons. First, it's a great story. It's good to know about Herzl and about why and when the Zionist vision arose. And I've hoped that by speaking about Herzl and his vision and his persistence and the First Zionist Congress, that we'll continue to learn more about the origins of the State of Israel. Second, as you all know, this is the week in which we observe Yom Hazikaron and we celebrate Yom Ha'atzmaut, when the State of Israel moves from its Memorial Day remembering those who died defending the state to its celebration of its 74th year as a sovereign and modern state. But there's a third reason I wanted to share Herzl's story. As we've seen, back in 1897, Herzl focused on the Jewish problem. He identified a solution and spent the rest of his life pursuing that solution. And we all realize how easily that could have been otherwise. He could have just said, well, it's a big problem, but I'll just keep my head down. I'm a journalist. I've got a good job. I'll continue to write. Continue to live happily ever after. And yet, as we've seen, at a certain point in his life, he realized that he couldn't not get involved. He probably never knew the phrase, because he was not a religious Jew, Kol Yisrael Aravim Zeh Bazeh, that all Jews are responsible one for the other. But from the moment that he made that realization after the Dreyfus Trial, he lived that motto. For Herzl, the motive was anti-Semitism. And unfortunately, we all know that we are living at a time when both in this country and around the world, anti-Semitism is once again on the rise. After a long sense of feeling very secure in this country, many of us are acknowledging that we're feeling a little less secure. And in case you had any doubt about that, when you greeted Mark, our security guard, on your way in, you remember that it's only in the last couple of years that we have felt the need as a community to hire a security guard when we're here together on Shabbat morning. But the Herzl story goes deeper than its anti-Semitism. It reminds us that none of us as individual Jews can afford to ignore the needs of the collective Jewish people and to find our own path to be part of securing the Jewish future for our children and our grandchildren. That each one of us has to find our own way of living out. Kol Yisrael Aravim Ze Bazeh. That we are each responsible for the collective well-being of this people. Think about this fact. Before 1897, 80% of Jews, by historical estimates, lacked freedom and political power. Today, in 2022, 80% of Jews are living in a democratic society. And even if we don't live in Israel, a great deal of the security that the Jewish people has today goes and is because of the creation of the State of Israel. The single most important inflection point in 2,000 years of Jewish history. Because of the State of Israel, and because Herzl understood the idea of the Jewish problem, it just doesn't mean what it meant at the end of the 1800s. We know that for hundreds and hundreds of years, Jews had prayed for the restoration of Jewish sovereignty in our homeland. But that didn't do much to speed the process of redemption. It's really Herzl who goaded the entire Jewish world into action. And because of him, we are very lucky. Because of our identity as Americans, but in no small measure because of the State of Israel, we have freedoms that those delegates who gathered in Basel in 1897 could only dream of. And our Jewish identity is no longer a problem. It's a choice that we can make freely. And it's because Herzl led the way that we have that freedom. And so each of us, as we come to this time of both remembering those who died defending the state and the 74 years of Israel's existence as a modern state, that we come to be reminded of our responsibility to secure the Jewish future, not only in our support for the State of Israel, but for everything that we can do to strengthen the Jewish people. I want to conclude with some words from the late Rabbi Jonathan Sachs. We are part of the Jewish story. We can live it, we can abandon it, but it is a choice we cannot avoid, and it has immense consequences. The future of the Jewish people rests with us. May we continue to build that future for our children and our grandchildren. And let us say, Amen. Shabbat Shalom. Chazan is going to lead us now in Musaf. You'll find Musaf beginning page 155. If you're able to rise, we ask you to do so.
יתקדל ויתקדש שמי רבה ביעלמה דברי קראתי ונמחקותי בחיי כל ומכל וכל בית ישראל בגלה בזמן קריב ואמרו אמן יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם עולם עמיה יתברך יתברך וישתבח ויתפואר ותרומה ותנשא ויתהדר ותהלל לשמי דקודשה בריחו לאלם כברכתה ושירתה תשבחתה ונחמתה דמירם בעלמה ואמרו אמן ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו אלוהי אברהם, אלוהי יצחק ואלוהי יעקב, אלוהי שרה, אלוהי רבקה, אלוהי רחל ואלוהי לאה, האל הגדול, הגיבור, הנורא, אל עליון, גומל חסדים טובים, בקוני הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות, ומביא גואל לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ופוקד ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ופוקד שרה. אתה גיבור עולם אדוני, מחיי מתים, אתה רב ליושיע, מוריד הטל, מכלכל קין בחסד, מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים, סומק נופלים ברופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישוע, ונאמן אתה לך חיות מתים, ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי המתים.
בקודש, המקדישים שמך בקודש, ככתוב את נביאך וכרזה אל זה ויאמר.
נריצך ונקדישך כצות שיח שרפי קודש, המקדישים שמך בקודש, ככתוב על יד נביאך וכרזה אל זה ויאמר.
קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוא כל הארץ כבודו.
קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוא כל הארץ כבודו. כבודו מלא מלא עולם, שם מקום כבודו. כבודו מלא מלא עולם, היה מקום כבודו. כבודו מלא מלא עולם, משרתיו שואלים שואלים זה לזה, היה מקום כבודו. משרתיו שואלים שואלים זה לזה, היה מקום כבודו. לימתם ברוך יאמרו,
ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו.
ברוך אדוני ממקומו, ממקומו. הוא יפם ברחמים, ויחונם המייחדים, המייחדים שמו. ערב ובוקר, בכל יום תמיד, פעמיים ביאבא, שמה שמה אומרים.
שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד.
שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. הוא אלוהינו, הוא אבינו, הוא אבינו, הוא מלכנו, הוא מושיענו, הוא ישמיענו, ישמיענו ברחמיו. שנית, 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 יענה כל חי, להיות לכם לאלוהים.
אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
אני אדוני אלוהיכם, ובדברי קודשך כתוב לאמור.
ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהי ציון לדור ודור, הללויה.
ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהי ציון לדור ודור, הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש. ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד, כי על מלך גדול וקדוש אתה, Baruch atah Adonai Ha'el HaKadosh.
Continuing privately through page 161.
תיקנת שבת רצו קרבתך. אז מסיני. יהי רצון לפניך אבותינו המשפט. ויום השבת שני כבשים בני שנתיים ימים.
חזיר שכינתו לציון. Those of you who are still davening, please continue. Those of you concluded, join with the Chazan, Kaddish Shalem, page 181.
יתקדש ויתקדש שמי רבה, ביעלמדי ורקירותי והמליך מלכותי בחייכון ומכון וחייכון בית ישראל בגלה וזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יש מרבה מבורך לעולם עולם ועמיה יתברך. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתלהב ויתהלל לשם בידי קודשה. בריחו לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה תמירן ביעלמה ואמרו אמן. תתקבל צדקו נבואו תכל ישראל קודמם דשמיא ואמרו אמן. יהי שלום רב מן שמיים וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום יברמה והוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן.
Page 182.
אין כאלוהינו, אין כאדוננו, אין כמלכנו, אין כמושיענו, מי כאלוהינו, מי כאדוננו, מי כמלכנו, מי כמושיענו. נודה לאלוהינו, נודה לאדוננו, נודה למלכנו, נודה למושיענו. אלוהינו, ברוך אדוננו, ברוך מלכנו, ברוך מושיענו. אתה הוא אלוהינו, אתה הוא אדוננו, אתה הוא מלכנו, אתה הוא מושיענו. אתה הוא שכתינו אבותינו לפניך את קטורת הסמים. עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי ארצות ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם וגול עלינו ככל המונם, ואנחנו לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא שהוא דשמיים וישראל שקרוי. כתוב בתורתו היום שבתנו על כן נקבל לך אדוני אלוהינו לראות מהרה ותפארת עוזך. ככתוב בתורתך אדוני מלוך לעולם ועד ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו
Those in the process of mourning or observing a yahrzeit, please remain standing. We continue with Mourner's Kaddish, page 184. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'yalma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon, v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'gala u'vizman kariv v'yimru. Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach li'olam omei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitalev v'yithalal shemei dekudesha b'rechu. La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tush b'chata v'nechemata da'amiran v'yalma v'yimru. Amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah min shemaya. V'chaim aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'yimru. Amen.
Amen.
Oseh shalom b'mramav hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'yimru. Amen.
Amen.
We ask God who brings peace and comfort on high to bring peace and comfort to all of you who are remembering your loved ones. We want to thank everyone for being here in person and for those watching on the Zoom for our Shabbat morning services. I want to thank Steve for chanting Haftarah for us this morning, all of you for participating. I want to acknowledge that I did have an announcement sheet, but it somehow got displaced, so I'll do a few things from memory. Don't forget, tomorrow you have your chance to hear Michael Smerconish for our annual gala. Tickets are still available. You can get them from our website, yes? Yeah. Elliot, we want to thank Elliot Miller for doing yeoman's work to make tomorrow possible. And I believe that we have met our fundraising goals for the event, and that's due to a lot of hard work from Elliot. It should be a wonderful evening with Michael Smerconish, and we're looking forward to hoping many of you will be here to join us. The Sisterhood's jewelry boutique is also tomorrow morning beginning at 9 o'clock. You'll have some great baggins on jewelry. If you come starting maybe 8, 9, it's going to be most of the day here at Beth Shalom. It's a KI. I'm sorry, it's a KI's parking lot. Right. KI's parking lot. Right. Sunday, May 15th. Well, there's other things happening before Sunday, May 15th, but Randy, I will let you know that there's a blood drive, right? Renee?
Tuesday, May 10th, we have a few slots open, not too many, 3 or 4.
For Renee organizes, and we thank her for all of the work she does to help do the mitzvah of saving life in the Delaware Valley by blood. So that's coming up this Friday night. There's going to be a fun family service with music for the state of Israel that we'll be doing, and also dinner to follow with, I think, Israeli food. And it's not only open to kids. You can come and be part of that. And then on the 15th, Randy, the Israel Engagement Committee, is sponsoring a brunch Sunday morning.
Israeli brunch and learn with the Masorti movement out of Israel, and also we're connecting with an MK from the Knesset. This will be on Zoom, live and on Zoom.
And the Cantor is going to announce that he's also doing some Israeli music. There's a lot of Israel happening.
Yeah. So this Friday we're having a kids service. I'm not doing the Israeli service then because it'll be tough for the kids. But for that reason, we're doing it in a week. On May 13th, it's going to be an Israeli-style Shabbat with all Israeli Shabbat tunes, both old and new. So if you want to experience an Israel-style Shabbat as if you're in Israel on Shabbat, please come. That's in 2 weeks, May 13th.
And so I won't go through all the other things that are on the calendar, but this is a time of year when there's lots going on, and we have some wonderful programs. The Center for Spiritual Wellbeing is sponsoring a program on Tuesday night on stress and burnout, because many people are working from home and not making good separations between home and work, which is an interesting topic. But you'll check your weekly email to see all the things that you may want to participate in the coming weeks or so. I will say that by Sunday at the latest, if you are going to be able to join us for a wonderful bat mitzvah and ufruf for my daughter and future son-in-law on May 21st. We'd love you to RSVP if you haven't done so already, so we know who's coming for lunch, because we're actually getting close to running out of space. But so if you're going to be here, let us know, and if not, you may not eat. So there'll certainly be enough for you to do a l'chaim, but you may not be able to eat. So you got to RSVP, and Sunday is our last day to do so. Oh, Selma's class. Selma's class. Right, Tuesdays at 4?
Tuesdays at 4. It was wonderful. We had a wonderful group, and I'm really excited. I'm hoping more of you will join our group. We're looking at tefillah using Hebrew and the basics of Hebrew, so we're studying the words as well as some of the meanings of the prayers. And I just want to say one other thing. I was recently invited to participate in the in the World Zionist Congress in Basel, which is being held this summer in the end of August, and it will be, I hope to probably participate. It'll be an honor to be a part of that.
And we'll invite you to speak to us about your experiences there when you come back, God willing. All right, Lynn, what else do we miss? Yeah. And if you want to send the link to Stacy, we can get it out to people so they can watch as well. That would be beautiful. Great, thank you. All right, without further ado, you never keep the Jews from lunch for too long. Page 187, Adon Olam.
Adon Olam asher malach b'terem kol yetzir nivra liet nasa v'chefzo kol azay melech shemo nikra ויחרק יכלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא הווה והוא יהיה בתפארה והוא אחד ואין שני להמשילו להכפירה בלי ראשית בלי תכלית ולא העוז והמשרה והוא אלי והגולי וצור חבלי ביצרה והוא ניסי ומנוס לי מנת כוסי ביום אקרא בידו אף כדרוכי בית תשן ויעירה ואמרוכי גבייתי אדוני לי ולא יירא
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Marcus, are we taking our shoes off at the end of services? A new custom.
Oh, he's doing the...
Excellent song.
Oh, I'm glad you liked it.
Excellent.
Rabbi,
unbelievable.
got the Rabbi, I got the Rabbi seal of approval.
We're going to sandwich him on that one.
He's great.
We're sandwiching the
Unbelievable. Great job.
We're
really.
sandwiching him on that one, Herzl.
My Herzl sermon. Yeah.
It's right up there with that woman who was the waitress and the fireman.
Oh, yeah.
It's right, it didn't even leapfrogged over that. How's that?
Shabbat Shalom. Yeah.
Everybody's on. Judy's here. They get the Hazan too. You gotta say hello before you leave, Hazan. Shabbat Shalom. That's on in the head, Shady. Yeah. Right there. Right here, Don. You gotta look down here.
I gotta show you my shirt.
Right here.
Shabbat Shalom. Heights with the high ground. There you go. That's for Rob.
Look
and
down here,
Marilyn Rubin.
That's it.
For Bill Lloyd. Judy, there you go. The Greens, the Rabbi, and Judy Peaks
right
with
there,
the high ground.
Right there. I love Judy.
On the day he spoke about Theodore Herzl,
the best.
The Golden Heights, Peaks with the high ground. Shabbat Shalom. I'm going to go have whatever leftover matzah. I don't know.
Hurry up. You're starving. Oh boy. Jesus HaTorah. Agba boy in the house today.
Agba.
Shabbat Shalom. I have a Shabbat Robert Rubin. Give him the joke.
I have a Shabbat joke for the group. You know, the
Shabbat
Shalom joke today about all the stuff that was terrible and that one should not do. One should not lie with, you know, a sister-in-law and a brother-in-law, all that stuff. And also, there was something about that you should not have relations with animals. So the joke is, when I first
turning it off. I have to try to
small firm I worked for, they sent me out in the middle of the state of Pennsylvania, where it's a little bit of like Alabama-like, and I had to defend some farmer who was accused of having sex with sheep. It's funny, similar to the portion. And you know, you do voir dire, which means that you pick a jury. So I started, you know, asking the folks in the jury, and I knew that we were going to win the case. Because the first guy, I said, do you find the charges against my client of having sex with sheep to be terrible and outrageous? And he looked at me straight in the eye without blinking and without any hesitation and said, nah.
That's why Don doesn't practice law anymore.
Hey, listen.
Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Love you guys. See you, Judy. See you. See you, Bill.
Bill Roy, my Haga boy. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hi, Judy.
Hi. And they haven't even eaten yet.
Hi, Robbie.
Hello, how are you?
Okay. Okay. How you all doing?
What are you doing?
Beverly, I have to tell you.
What are we doing all this? Oh, the voices in the room.
Yeah, the noise in the room.
I'm going to call Sarah Cobell, whose daughter.
What was I gonna? I forget what I was gonna say. All right, so Jonathan and Chris are fine.
Yeah, we had a little bit of a tragedy occur. Our oldest granddaughter, Natalie, one of her very good friends committed suicide.
Horrible. How old?
17.
How old?
17, a boy. And she met him on stage crew, you know, with the show that they did last year. They became very close. So the whole school is in an uproar, you know. That's sad.
Very sad.
You know,
I didn't want to put that in. I was never going to put that in the text, but since we're talking in person, I thought I would share.
Everybody.
Other than that, life is good, but hopefully she'll recover. And yeah, she did ask her father today. She asked Jason, you know, she wants to see a therapist. Glad she asked. They brought therapy dogs to the school the whole week and had counselors there to talk. And she spent a lot of time with her girlfriends. And she did decide she was going to go to the funeral, which I think is good.
Very good, Bill. I really do.
There's a lot about Natalie that she asked herself to go get, you know, to talk to someone.
Hi. Didn't want to snub you guys.
Hi.
Shabbat Shalom.
How you doing?
Shalom.
Judy, I saw Steve in an ad for Josh, but not you.
Yeah, you know, I'm just the mother, so.
I mean, you know, get a uniform, put it on, and pose. What can I tell you?
I saw a guy today too that looked like Steve. Some guy that did the Haftarah.
Yeah. Good job. All right. Bye, guys. Be well.
Bye.
Thanks. You know, it's very hard for me to wrap my head around suicide, period. But 17 is like, I can't wrap my head.
The whole day today, it was interesting. I was watching some Rakanish this morning, usually from 9 to 9:30. And he had a guy on, they talked about what's going on today, how much different things are. And not blaming iPhones or telephones, right, but the whole idea that people just kids don't congregate as much anymore. There's a lot of time spent alone, time on the internet. They don't have the same social outlook that we used to have. It's so different. And there's much more, because of the, I guess, being alone, more depression and more thoughts of suicide. So yeah, it's up dramatically from when we were kids, you know?
So you know what, with all the social media where people put out things about
negative things.
Well, no, not also how quote unquote wonderful their lives are when it's not necessarily so. And other people think that that's the norm if their lives are a little bit less than that at that point.
Right.
And if you think about books and also with all the pressures of going to college and getting ready to go to college, and you know, kids that age are very, very mean. When my daughter, and I don't really put that out there that much, was that age, and she ran and she had a tiff with somebody in her class, and the girl kept saying, kill yourself, nobody really wants you. And thankfully she came to us and we helped her with that.
Unbelievable.
Girls are very, very mean.
Unbelievable.
It is. I think, Robbie, you also hit a really good point. And I felt this a lot. I said this a lot at the start of COVID. You know, I tried to make a joke out of it, but it really wasn't a joke. Like, you know, all the people who were posting, you know, how, you know, in COVID, they wrote the great American novel and created the great symphony and baked, you know, 55 things every day. And, you know, and I was saying it like, I made it in the hyperbole, but I said, you know, we all have to be really careful that we're not just taking that in and then saying, well, I didn't bake 7 breads a day and I didn't write the great American novel. There must be something wrong with me. It was hard enough just getting through the lockdown, let alone doing that stuff. And I don't know, maybe there were some people that wrote the great American novel or that baked 65 things every day, but I don't think most people were doing that. And
the point in general is some people handled, you know, the isolation and found other things to sublimate and did okay with it. You know, I personally, I felt I grew a lot doing it, but I know so many people suffered with it. They couldn't stand it, you know? So you got to be careful, you know, how you perceive it or how you let other people perceive it, create more negativity for them.
Right. And I think what Robbie said is so right. I mean, the kids are looking, I mean, because people, the disgusting part to me about Facebook, you know, everybody, I mean, you can create your own image. It's
your own persona. It's your own persona.
Your own persona, and you can make up anything, you know, where you went, what you did, you know, I mean, it's just like, and who even knows, you know, when somebody puts all these posts up about where they are and what they did, how do you know what's really going on in somebody's life? They could have been fighting with their partner the entire trip. They could be in an abusive relationship.
Absolutely.
They could have a horrible relationship with their children, but they can smile for 3 seconds in a picture and shoot it up on Facebook. But I think, again, to Robbie's point, especially if you're 17, you don't see these nuances. You just see that everybody else has a better life than you do. And why do you want to be here? But, oh my God, the idea, I mean, this is, you know, it's.
You don't see the concept, Judy, shall pass, that it's only fleeting, that it's momentarily, you're in a bad space. And it depends upon sometimes the relationship that you have with your folks, how mean your peers are to you, and stuff like that. Even like as adults where I work, when COVID started, my team used to have a daily check-in meeting with each other really Thursday, and sometimes more, but we all check in with each other. We also IM each other a million times a day, a group chat. It's kind of a check-in, monitor people, and this is even continued after some of my office has gone back to the office. I'm not back in the office yet because I have accommodations, but we've all kept in touch with each other, and it's been a really good support system.
Yeah.
Now, Bill, do you get the sense that the school has done a good job with it?
Do I get a sense in what?
That the school has done a good job with it?
I do. And Natalie called Judy a few times, especially the first day she shared with her. She was crying hysterically, but then, she's gotten better over the last couple of days. And then the first day she said the dogs did nothing for her, naturally. I mean, that's, for that maybe fleeting second, it was nice, but it doesn't get rid of all that pain.
No.
And that's why she asked to see a therapist, and recognizes that could be an important thing to help her along with what's going on. It's like anything else. Hopefully, time, will improve things, and it never makes it go away, but it helps you to better, absorb it and go on and do what you have to do in life. But
well,
boy,
she's also very lucky because she has, wonderful parents, loving grandparents. The idea that she reached out to her grandmother like that says so much about Judy, about you, about her, and not everybody is blessed like that.
Yeah. I was on the phone together, with them, trying to encourage her, and you have to be careful too. You don't want to say things like, you'll get over it, don't worry.
Yeah.
You have to just listen and and share your love for them and everything. But yeah, what a tough situation. Yeah.
Well, I know you're in a little different position than, let's say, Bruce Goldstein, who would get something like this first, but I'm sure do you see much of this at work, of burying young kids from suicide?
No.
Oh, thank God.
No.
Thank
God is right. But,
Thank God.
Yeah, I mean, it's way more prevalent than it was, but it's not like it's happening to 20% or something of the population. But I mean, it was back when we were growing up, it was unheard of, unless, you were talking teenagers at that point that were on LSD and weren't acting rationally or something, but it wasn't a general, epidemic or anything like that.
You know what, Bill, I agree with you there, but I think it was more hidden. I think that there was a certain amount of kids, but it was kept hush hush by the family, and it was like something just happened, like it was say it was an aneurysm or something happened like that. But,
yeah. Well, let me put it this way: I just am not aware of a lot of kids that died. Period. That were anywhere in my circle or in my school. So I would think it's less. But you're right. Where that kind of thing happens, people do try to, keep it quiet, which is wrong. I mean, it's better to share so you can help other people,
There's been an uptick in our school district recently of young deaths, that's for sure. Up the street from me, he killed himself, and there was somebody the year below who recently killed himself. There's been more than we ever heard of when she was a little bit younger. It's just horrible. The first time I ever heard of a young kid doing that, I have a nephew who's 35, and it was Thanksgiving Day weekend, and an 11-year-old kid in his class hung himself, and that was years ago. But it was definitely not as much, it wasn't as prevalent then as it is definitely now. There's really been an uptick in it, and I know certain people at work, not on my team, have lost their children by suicide. I can think of 2 or 3 people who've
that's just crazy.
Unbelievable. I mean, I just remember when I was at Girls High, and obviously, Robbie, I'm older than you are, probably by a lot. But this was, I was at Girls High from 61 to 65. So I can't remember if it was a sophomore, junior, or whatever, but we got this hush hush that kind of went through the school that I think it was a 9th grader got upset because she got a C or a B or something. And she went to the highest place at Girls High she could find, and she jumped and she killed herself. And this was like unbelievable. Like that, none of us, I mean, we couldn't wrap our heads around it. We couldn't figure out how somebody could have jumped like that, and B, because you got a bad grade. Now, there was, there must have been more to the story. I don't know, but that was, and then a couple years later, my best friend's father jumped off the bridge into the Wissahickon Creek. Obviously, he was, and this was 1970. I've never forgotten it. I've never been able to get that out of my head. I mean, his suicide.
Listen, first of all, I have to get off shortly. I've been paged for lunch, but I wanted to give you a nice story. I had lunch with a friend. I'll call him a friend because we had lunch. I hadn't seen him in 59 years.
Oh my God.
Elementary school, we went together. Okay. And then he went to Bieber with me, junior high school. But a lot of the kids from elementary school, you didn't see again too much in junior high. And then he went to Central. And he knows Steve, Michael Weingram, Warren Vogel. He was in their class. He was of my age. His name is Stanley Sokolov.
Oh, sure.
You know Stanley?
Well, let's put it this way. I mean, Steve and I started dating.
Of him.
Yeah, so I'm not putting a face with it, but definitely remember Stanley Sokolov.
Yeah. We went to elementary school together. And what happened is he has relatives, and his wife's parents are at Montefiore, and they bought recently, worked with Lori, and I saw the name on the agreement, and I made sure I made a connection, and we met on Thursday for a little brunch at Knishes and Dishes in Lafayette Hill, because he lives in Newtown Square rather.
I was going to say, from Newtown, that's quite a schlep.
Newtown Square. It takes him about 22 minutes to get to Lafayette Hill through the Blue Route. And it took me about 25 minutes. So it was a great meeting place. And I would end that on a higher note. I told you I may not see you guys tonight. We have dinner. It's kind of early, but I'm not sure if I'll be back by 8:30. If I am, I'm going to get on.
Okay.
But if not, I wish you Shabbat Shalom and Shavua Tov at the same time. I gotta run. Be well. Take care. Thanks for listening.
Oh no! Listen, my heart goes out to.
No, hold her close. Hold now close.
Yeah. I wish I could hold her closer because they're on Long Island, but
I know.
We're staying in touch close on the phone, and I think all the right things are being done. So,
right, and the most important thing is, she's part of a loving family. And I think that's, you and Judy should pat yourselves on the back, because that's really amazing that a grandchild would reach out like that for something like that. So it really shows the relationship that you have. So, kudos to you on that. And,
thank you.
And I look, who knows what motivated. There's also a lot. And I don't understand if this has to do with, what we're breathing in the air, or, what their parents smoked or what.
When you said what you're breathing in the air, did you see the movie The Happening? No. One of those Shyamalan movies, M. Night Shyamalan?
No, I can't watch those.
Yeah, he had a movie called The Happening, and there was this thing in the air and people were killing themselves. It's funny that you just said that.
Well, I didn't mean that. I just meant that, there seems to be, unless, like Robbie says, this is one more thing that never used to be reported, but there seems to be so much more in recent decades of ADD, ADHD, bipolar,
like Robbie said earlier, maybe it was hush hush, or it wasn't recognized, or it wasn't dealt with.
Maybe that's all it was. I mean, look, when we had wild kids in our class in elementary school, we just thought, or any age, we just thought they were wild kids. I mean, we didn't think there was a diagnosis. But
it's not like it was a condition, they were a wild kid.
But I keep thinking about that suicide note that Congressman Raskin's son, wrote, and he had, was it bipolar or was it depression or whatever it was, and he
get identified in so many cases,
Yeah, and
diagnosed.
In that case, he wrote, I mean, the family couldn't have done more. I couldn't have been in a better family, but in the end, the disease won. And I mean, so, who knows sometimes what that is, although I don't know. I mean, I don't know parents. I don't know how parents go on. I mean,
it's horrible.
It's very difficult. It's very, very difficult.
Anyway, I do have to run. Shabbat Shalom. Be well.
Shalom.
Talk to you again soon.
All right, well, hopefully you'll be back in time. If not, enjoy your dinner.
Thank you.
And Robbie, and I will see you tonight, Robbie.
Maybe not.
No, maybe. No. Just
I wrote you a note in the chat. Maybe. I'm thinking about it. I'm weighing it.
Robbie, I listen. I had no idea what she said last week. I guess I wasn't.
Judy, this is probably being recorded, and
it may be. I am sorry. Okay, I don't know. I don't see the recording sign anymore, but we'll stop.
You can I'll call you now if you want me to, or you can call me if you have time. But I don't want to really talk about it on here.
Yeah, no, I apologize. I haven't even, which is why you're only seeing my face, but not that it's so great when I'm dressed either. But I'm not, dressed or anything like that. I haven't eaten, so I just want to get the day started. I'm
sitting on my bed right now. I'm not dressed either.
Yeah, I mean, I just had another typical night of up, every hour. So I kept falling back to the morning every hour. So I just want to, but I will try to get back to you this afternoon, if not any other way. But I'm not going to say anymore. Just please promise me.
I'm thinking about it. I got it. I'll just put it this way. There's been other snarky comments made, and with regard to, and I'm not going to use a name, but we used to go out to dinner after Havdalah for a couple, but there was always like a little bit of edge toward me, and even one of my other friends acknowledged that. She said, I don't know why she always treats you like that. She said, I just don't know. I said, because she doesn't like me. And I don't know if there's like a little bit of jealousy there, although I don't know what there would ever be jealousy of, or I have my own thoughts on what has caused it, but I don't want to say it here. But I don't like being treated like that. I was in tears. I almost got off last week, but then I was in tears, like an ugly cry when I got off. And you know what I'm going through, and it really, really hurt me. Let's just put it that way.
Oh, Robbie, I am so sorry. But
not the first time I try to take the high road. I really, really do. And it's not all the time, but I like when he's there, I always feel like I have to watch my P's and Q's, walk on eggshells. I'm always scared to death, right? And it really, and I'm in a very, I feel very, very sensitive right now. I'm always a pretty sensitive person, even more so now because of all that I'm going through.
Right. Well, I don't know. I mean, I wish I had some smart words. I just, maybe if I can, I mean, just like look at me, if you start to feel, wobbly or anything, don't look at her box. Just look at me, and I'll be smiling there for you, because nobody should be able to do that to you. And I'm a good person to talk. I let everybody do that to me, but it's
I do too, really cool. But last week was really rude because I had heard what I said, right? And I didn't make it up. And then she got it wrong. But with such a sneer and with such an ugly look on her face, Ken was sitting across the table from me, and he said he could hear it in her voice, right? But he couldn't see her facially because, as I said, we sit at the kitchen table, and I was on one side, and he was on the other side. Although he promised me that if I go today, he was next to me at the table today.
That's a great idea. That is a great idea. Just, so she sees him sitting there too. But if you, if you're not on, then you're giving her a victory that you shouldn't give her. And that's think about it that way. And if she's being snarky to you, and if there is a jealousy, or if there is anything like that, then you're being there on that box. She knows she didn't win. And like, you're there all the time. So if there was an altercation last week and then you don't show up this week, that's giving her a victory that you don't want to give her. And look, maybe she was hungry. Maybe she was tired of-
I'll just tell you the last thing before I get off. There was a birthday party for a mutual friend of ours. And I don't go out much because I'm afraid of COVID and there was a birthday party and I was there on time. She got there pretty late. But when she got there, she didn't even acknowledge me or say hello. And I said hello to her. She's very, very cold. Then all the Beth Shalom people pretty much sat together, but there was no room for me to sit with them. I had to sit with complete strangers. She plotted it out, but there was no room for me to sit with them. There was no room. I had to sit at the other end of the table, and there was no room. There were any number of Beth Shalom women there. It was an all women's party, and I went. This was several months ago, and I was fuming. In fact, I texted Ken, and while I was there, and I almost got up and left, but I didn't want to hurt our mutual friend about it. And I'm not sure that she realized or recognized what happened. I've never said anything to her about it.
That is so middle school cafeteria that it makes me want to barf. I mean, that really is. Why is my phone keep beeping? Really middle school cafeteria, and the fact that no other Beth Shalom woman who was sitting there got up to move with you.
Nope. Because they're friendly with her, and you want to know something? The people I sat with were lovely. They were absolutely lovely to me. But
that's the point. That's not. I mean, I'm happy that was, but that's not the point. The point is that either they should have squeezed over and let you in, or one or two of them should have gotten up to move to the other table with you.
And I try to take the high road, even when I send a global Mother's Day thing, I always include her. When her hair was growing back in, I dropped her a note. Your hair looks great, good going, And she knows what I'm going through because she was part of that group. She doesn't know now, but she knows in the beginning. Do you know she never reached out to me? I called her one time when she's in the hospital. It was such an awkward call. I mean, it was real. And I said to Ken, I'm not going to do this anymore. I know where I stand. And I said, but then when our mutual friend, and we have two mutual friends, said something to me, and she said, and I've said something to my husband, and we can't figure out why she's like that to you. And they're right.
Ask her why she's like that to you?
No, I would never. Because I don't want to be in anybody's mouth. Beth Shalom's a very small place, and I don't want to be in anybody's mouth. I really don't. It's best left unsaid. I don't want to tell you how many times, even last year at Havdalah, she acts like I repeat stuff and like I'm the biggest gossip in the world. And I'm not a gossip. I would never repeat anything to anybody. I'm not a gossip. If it's not my news to share, I would never. I'm one of these people that I'm happy for other people's triumphs, and my heart goes out to them for their sympathies and the ills that they're going through. And I'm a very empathetic person. But don't attack me for something that wasn't even my fault, or just because you felt like you had an audience last week. I was embarrassed, and I was very, very embarrassing.
Well, she should have been embarrassed, not you. But again, I apologize. I wish I would have been on at that point.
You were, but I don't think you realized it. But you know what? So I'll make up my mind by tonight what I'm going to do. And there might be another factor. I told you, Jordan has a new boyfriend, and she asked if we wanted to meet him tonight. And maybe I will, maybe I won't, or maybe I'll try to work it out so that we don't miss Havdalah. I'll figure it out. But I feel bad about missing tonight if I do, because Larry was so sick. I talked to him in the middle of the week. I called him in the middle of the week to ask him how he was, and he's doing much better. And I don't want him to think that I ever don't appreciate what he does for us.
Right. Now, did you just say I was on when it happened?
You are. You
Then-
were. Because
Then, then
you
if
guys,
I if
you
I
were on
was
before I
on-
was.
what's that?
You and she were on before I got on.
Then if I was on and she said something to you, obviously I didn't hear it because
I don't think you heard it. I think you were talking to somebody else had gone on, and I think you were talking to the other person, but I can't remember who it was.
so then probably nobody heard it other than
I don't know about that. It was very awkward, and it was very, very awkward. I'm not gonna next time. Ken said that I put her in her place last week because she shut up. He said to me, "That was our first time I ever heard you bite back at her the way you did." He goes, "You usually take it, and you bit back at her," and he goes, "And it stopped."
good for you. I should take a lesson from you.
Good. You should, but it took me a long time.
Yeah, 'cause I'm 74. You can't teach that old dog a new
Oh,
trick.
yes, you can, because I don't. I'll tell you, I am not as I pushed back last week, and I'm not as silent as I used to be. If someone's mean, and I stand up for other people, even on my team at work, whatever. I'm not going to take this high school bullying stuff where other people are mean to people. I don't like it.
Yeah, well, I'm really good at defending everybody else. I mean, I'm great at that. I'm just not very good at taking care of myself. That's the problem. But that's the
Well,
whole.
we shouldn't talk about this here. It might be being recorded.
Well, you know what? I don't think we're being recorded anymore. But again, anybody could be in this room and we're just not seeing them. But of course, we haven't said any names. So,
Right.
but yeah, we'll
Exactly right.
to be continued. But obviously, if Jordana wants you to do this, that's much more important. But just one quick thing. So Larry is okay.
Yes, he was just suffering from very bad exhaustion. He had been in Mashgiach during the course of the week. He had conducted an unveiling. He was with the satyrs between the services. He just was he was a little bit anemic. He was just very, very exhausted. And I told him that he needs to. I said, for people like you and me, Larry, it's very hard to cut back. We feel obligated,
Right.
but if you don't, you're not going to be here just like with me, and you need to cut back. And he said he was hearing that from everybody.
Good. That's good. Oh my gosh. Well, God willing, everything will be all right tonight. And again, if it's Jordana, she takes precedence. But if it's not, please come on, Robbie, because
I'll try. I'll try.
Here, keep this in mind. It'll mean a lot to me. So,
That means a lot to me, Judy. And I told Ken that Judy will be mad at me if I don't.
No, I'm not going to be mad. I will never be mad at you, Robbie. Please don't even think like that. I would never be mad at you. I will just be disappointed if I don't get to see you. But I would not be mad at you, disappointed in you. You have to do the only thing I'll be mad at is the person who could have put you in that position. Mm-hmm. That will make me mad the whole night. That will make me mad. But it's not, I would never be upset with you, ever, or disappointed or judging you for what you're doing. And never. Just please hear that. I will not be mad at you. I'll be mad at her, but I will not be mad at you.
It was like last week was like, what's the word I want to say? It was, I can't think of the expression. There's an expression with regard to like it topped it off. It was like so unexpected. It wasn't even anything that wasn't said because you didn't hear it, because she didn't hear it. Didn't mean it wasn't said. I said you weren't there. You didn't hear it. Right. But I didn't like being attacked like that, and I'm not going to let her attack me anymore. And what do you call it? I'm confident that the other two people that we share mutually as friends will not interfere with our friendships. I'm confident of that.
Well, that's good. That's good. I mean, that's important. And I just, I guess I said it all. I don't know what else to say, but you must hear me that I would never be upset with you. I would never be disappointed in you, and I would never be judging you. So please hear those three things. Please. No matter what you choose to do tonight, but hopefully I will see you. I hope nobody can hear me say this right now, but I must get to the bathroom.
Me too. Gotta go.
I can share that with you because I know you understand when it
I
gets
do. Totally.
gotta run.
Totally. All right. Maybe I'll see you tonight. Maybe I won't. And I've taken everything that you said to heart. I really have. Thank you for being a wonderful friend.
Oh, thank you. Mwah. I'm sending you big hug.
Me too. Bye.
Bye.
Okay. Oh my God. There's my mouse.
Shalom.